Well, I usually ask any of the readers, like, what stood out as they read that passage for tonight. And I've got to say that what stood out is the phrase hobbling demands, surrendering these hobbling demands. When I reflect on this emotional dependence that Bill is talking about, it generates, and I've seen this in my life, and I've seen this with a lot of people that I've worked with, but our dependence generates a lot of claims and demands on how life is supposed to be. I've talked before that it creates a consciousness that is a contingency-based consciousness that says, if I am okay if this happens or that happens. As Thom Rutledge said last week, a corollary of that is, I'd be okay if this didn't happen. And so we put a condition, right? A contingency on our well-being. And that contingency is based on people and circumstances around us. In one way, we can say that we've taken kind of our center of gravity and we've taken it, instead of it being inside of us, that we've put it outside of ourselves. And I can see that I've done that so many times in my life and for so long. And until I started to understand and explore and then research and further develop some of these ideas on emotional sobriety, I never realized how I had turned over my life, instead of to the care of God as I understood it, to everything and everyone around me as I understood them. And that meant I was a yo-yo. I would react this way or that way, depending on whether things were going my way or not. And there was no true north in myself. I was like in a rowboat boat out at sea with no rudder or oars and just being moved by whichever way the currents were taking me. Well, that proves to be an impossible way of life. And as you see, it's going to really tie into what we're talking about in terms of this 11th insight tonight. So um, let me go ahead and kick off this discussion. Tonight, we're continuing to explore the chapters, sort of really the insights that I write about in my new book, 12 Essential Insights for Emotional Sobriety. Um, we are on insight number 11, which is living a purposeful life. Now, some of you may ask, well, what were you thinking when you decided to put this insight in at this particular point in time? Well, let's kind of, first of all, step back and look at what's happened to us up to now. If we've really been on this journey of emotional sobriety, the first thing that happened for us is that we realized that we had been asleep, dreaming we're awake. That's a phrase that a Russian philosopher Gurdjieff uses a lot. We're asleep, dreaming we're awake. And we realized that in this trance that we had been in, is that we can only see life through one lens, through one perspective. As we learn when we work the 12 steps, especially step one, we talk about our powerlessness over whatever particular issue we're struggling with. But the second part of that step is really so relevant to this, is that our lives had become unmanageable. And that unmanageability started well before our addiction, started well before my addiction. This unmanageability was caused by this rigid way that I was living my life, a way where I demanded the possession and control. This is how Bill says it, quote unquote. I demanded the possession and control of the people and circumstances around me. Well, as we start to wake up, we start to develop a greater consciousness. And as that consciousness starts to grow, we see the extent of our emotional dependency, and that it is truly our basic flaw, as Bill describes it, that it is the cause of all of our struggle and all of our troubles in life. And as we start to sort that out, right, we start to take a look at it and we start to gain insight into it. We start to realize that that emotional dependency is the cause of us taking everything personal in life. So we make everything about us. We start to be, learn how to become aware of what's upsetting us and start to unpack it to discover the unenforceable rules and expectations that we have about how life is supposed to be for us to be okay. I mean, it's an incredible transformation that starts to expand our consciousness and shift our consciousness away from that I'm okay if consciousness to an I'm okay even if consciousness. A consciousness that creates emotional autonomy, that creates what Bill Wilson called a true independence of spirit. Now, as that's happening, it's kind of like we're on a Humpty Dumpty recovery experience, right? Where all the king's horses and all the king's men are putting Humpty Dumpty together again. We're taking all of these parts in us that have been so alienated and fragmented. And as we're doing this work, we're starting to move towards more and more integrity. And I want you to think of integrity as wholeness here. So the fragmentation of our personality is healing. We are becoming whole. Now, in this becoming whole, the way I like to describe it is that we are recovering our lost true self. We started out whole you see a child, that child is completely present in their life. They are responsive to whatever's going on with them. They don't have all of these rules and ideas about how they're supposed to be. Now, of course, we're going to screw all that up as we raise our children. But that's the state that we're in. We got so fragmented by trying to adapt to all of the conditions and expectations that we imposed on ourselves, that a culture imposed on us, that our family imposed on us. And in the process, we got lost. A big part of us that got lost was our vitality, our exuberance. I want to say that again. A big part of us that got lost is when you become fragmented, you lose that excitement, that fascination with life. Because now our experience is one of trying to control life, not enjoying life and experiencing life, but controlling it, trying to force it to be what we think we need it to be. And when we lose that, we lose fascination and we become focused on control. Well, as we let go of that, as we realize that maturity, right, is going beyond this need for environmental support, this emotional dependence, and moving towards what we can think of as self-support. As I learn to support myself more, I am recovering more and more of who I am. A deep need that every one of us has is to be of value, is to make a difference. It is incredibly important to be of value in this world. What makes it so important? Well, it's a pillar of self-esteem. You see, we can't have any true self-esteem unless we are living our life with a purpose. Now, that purpose can take a lot of different folk guy, all right? We can be focused on living life with a purpose of achieving a goal in our life, which is a very important part of developing self-confidence and being able to set a goal for yourself and to work towards that and achieve that goal and do whatever you can to mobilize yourself to make that happen. That becomes a very important part. But there's also a deep need in us to serve a purpose that is greater than self. You see, so there's two different purposes that we're going to be talking about when we talk about this insight. The first one has to do with something more practical, is setting goals in your life and now being able to mobilize yourself to achieve that goal. Now, that doesn't mean it always happens in a straight line. You know, a lot of times we have to deal with a lack of feeling worthy of being successful. So we have to deal with how we sabotage ourselves from being successful and achieving some of the goals we want. Or we have to see how our perfectionism interferes with us go ahead and even starting some of the things that we hope to achieve. And so I'd rather fantasize or daydream about it than actually take the risk of doing it. Because if I fail, then I might hate myself. So there's all kinds of things that we encounter as we're trying to live our life purposefully. Nathaniel Branden and Scott Peck talk about self-discipline as such an important part of living a healthy life. And this is one of the things we learn, that when we start living with a purpose, that we need to discipline ourselves. In fact, Bill Wilson even talked about self-discipline is such an important part of recovery, about getting yourself to that meeting that you don't want to go to, working the steps when you don't want to work them. Those kinds of things become incredibly important. And so self-discipline is essential to being able to live a good life, to being able to enjoy our life, to have emotional sobriety. The discipline that when we get disturbed, to start to look at ourselves rather than point the finger at someone else. To understand what Bill said, that it's a spiritual axiom that every time that we're upset, no matter the cause, he said, every time we're disturbed, no matter the cause, there's something wrong with us. I like to think if there's something off with us, what's off with us is we have an expectation about how things are supposed to be. And we don't like the fact that they're not turning out the way we want them to, so we get upset about it. We object. And then typically we'll try to manipulate the situation to turn it into what we want, instead of dealing with life and dealing with reality as it is. So that's one sense of this being living life with a purpose, is being able to set goals and achieve them, being able to mobilize yourself and to support yourself in achieving some of the things that are important to you. Part of that is knowing what you want. And a lot of us are so lost in that nobody's really showed an interest in what we want, that we just try to do what other people think, you know, we should do. I'll never forget, in my practice in Southern California, I was working with a young man at that time. He was probably in his mid 30s. He was an emergency room doctor and he couldn't stand it. Didn't like his career at all, was very successful, damn good at what he did, one of the best ER docs in Southern California, probably. But he didn't like his work at all. Dreaded going to work, dreaded doing his shifts, although he felt very, very competent at it. Now, he was the son of a butcher in New York. He was from Italy, his father. So he was first generation Italian American, as many immigrant children were, is that their fathers and parents wanted them to be more than they were. And they encouraged them to go to school, become doctors, lawyers, engineers, whatever it was, because they didn't want them to live the life that they lived, where his dad was a butcher, probably working 14 plus hours a day in the butcher shop. And he wanted his son to have a better life than that. So he encouraged his son to go to medical school. His son had no interest, but he wanted to please his father, so he went to medical school and became a medical doctor. And was very unhappy, was very, very unhappy with his career, and came to me because he was depressed. And as we started to explore this and his relationship with his dad, he started to talk about that. His dad never once asked him what he wanted to do. His dad always told him what he had to do to be okay. No one had ever turned to him and said, well, what would you like? What would make you happy? What are your interests? What's your desire? And of course, I had to ask that question that was never asked of him. And you know what he said? I wanted to be a woodworker. I want to work with my hands and I want to design furniture. I feel like I've got a real beautiful, aesthetic sense of what furniture can be like. And I'd like to create it with my hands. But I never felt like that was okay because it would displease my father. And he worked so hard and I couldn't do that. I'd feel like I'd be a disloyal son if I didn't do what he really wanted me to do. And given that he sacrificed so much for me to go to school, I couldn't betray him in that way. And well, after we worked together for 6 months, he decided to invest himself into some woodworking machinery and started to create a wood shop in his garage. And he started to produce furniture. And I got to tell you now, it's an unbelievable story. Is that, yeah, he still works as an ER doc about once or twice a week, nowhere near about half the time he was working before, maybe even less. And he started this high-end furniture company, and he's incredibly successful. His pieces sell for thousands and thousands of dollars each. And the guy's in heaven. He really pursued and supported himself. You see, when we pursue a purpose that speaks to us in that way, it we validate ourselves. Instead of looking for that validation outside of ourselves, we support ourselves to pursue what's important to us. We validate our existence. It was incredible to watch this transformation into this man who was kind of a hollow shell, a very successful doctor, but unbelievably unsuccessful, become someone who was alive, fascinated with life. Exuberant is the word. You see, when we don't live with a purpose that's connected to who we really are, then we're just living, we're like automatons. We're filling some role, some obligation. It's stereotyped. Our behavior is stereotyped. We're role playing. There is nothing real or authentic about it. Our heart isn't in it. We're just doing it because we should. That is the kiss of death to our souls. I gotta tell you. So, a very, very important part of this living life or living a purposeful life is being able to support ourselves to pursue what's important to us and what we really desire and dream of. And if we're not doing it, we got to get to work in terms of how we block and how we shut ourselves off or what trauma we've got to deal with to remove those barriers so we can start living the kind of life that we'd like to live. As I get reminded all the time, this is not a dress rehearsal, right? This is it, folks. Maybe we come back and do it again or not. I don't know if that's true or not, but right now I'm betting on that. I better show up today. This is not a dress rehearsal. So I'm going to talk about the second part of this is living life with a purpose that is greater than ourselves next week. But I wanted to leave you with those thoughts and let me have my dear friend Thom come in and share. And Julia, if you'd like to join us in the room today, you're welcome to come in and give a perspective on this yourself if you'd like. But Thom, good evening. You're muted, my friend. And now I see you with the horse. Julia, can you unmute Thom or give him permission?
There we go. There we go. Yeah, I'm unmuted now.
You're unmuted now.
I'm unmuted. Yeah.
Well, well, first of all, how you doing, my friend?
I'm good. I'm doing really well. Thanks. It's yeah, just came from one of my follow-up doctor appointments yesterday, and everything is good. So no need to work on anything. So I just keep doing what I'm doing. So I'm good shape. So
Great news, man. Great news. Great
great,
news.
grateful. And it's like it's just about a year ago that I was in treatment, and so it's like I'm just experiencing the contrast of what I was not able to do a year ago and what I am able to do now, and just it's it's drastic, So it's I'm happy to do
Well,
that.
funny you say that, Tom, because doesn't it change? Living life with a purpose sometimes means I'd like to get to be able to eat a uh, Jersey Mike's sub again.
Right, right. But yeah, I still haven't had that Subway sandwich that I want, and I'm still that's my purpose. But I have eaten some pizza, so
There we go.
that's I don't yet care. I don't like it when I eat it because it's kind of it's when you don't have that much saliva in your mouth, it's not that big a deal. But I'm getting there. So anyway, thank you.
Great news, man. It's great news.
I love this topic, and it's and yet it's kind of evasive for me. It's like because I was making some notes about what you were saying. I was making some notes about what I think about this stuff, and I realized when I write down things I think about, uh, looking for a purpose, or being open to a purpose, is that when I write things down, they're sort of I don't know, they're kind of vague. They're not very specific, but maybe you can help me figure this out, because the reason for that is I believe that well, first of all, I think you hit on this. I think one of the things that's happening when we get to this place in our recovery where we're tuning back in, and it's a it's very part of our nature, I think, to want to human beings want to help. We do. I think it's a natural part of us, and it's really but like your story about the doctor, it at varying degrees of that, we've all had programs that tell us this is what I do. It's like some of us didn't pay attention. My program coming out of my family was to be a lawyer. I didn't do that at all. But and I'm proud of that. But it's like I didn't know that I was doing it. But it's what I think about is we have to tune in to ourselves. I call it a listening meditation, where we're listening, but we're not looking for anything specific. And I know how to tell. Of course, I can tell it best with metaphor. It's like I like to go. I like to go into antique shops and just wander, without any intent. And that's kind of how I think about this. And if you go into an antique shop and you decide to look for little things, small things on the shelves, things, Snoopy over here, whatever, little things like that, you can go through that whole place and have one kind of experience. And if you go in another time looking for furniture, which is where everything is sitting on, you're going to have an entirely different experience, and you're going to see different things entirely. So I think the harder, the more challenging, I don't know if it's hard, but the challenging thing about the listening and open awareness is to go in without an agenda as much as possible, without looking for anything in particular, just being aware. And I do this with my hands. It's just more expanded awareness. Um, and I really think that's when we can reconnect to the voice of wisdom that we all have inside. And I think a lot of times, much like your client, I think if we listen carefully, we'll get reconnected to something we knew knew about ourselves when we were younger, and we let go. It's like it's so many. I mean, this. I through 40 years of doing this work, so many times, they're awakening in their life, whether they're doing addiction work or not. But it's like they're realizing there was that they've been living by default, not decision. It's like, and I think we naturally live a first part of our lives a lot by default, and that's guided by other folks, or it's just sometimes just for me, it's just guided by circumstance. It's just I'm going through life, and here get bumped over here and get over here and go over here. But and I think that's okay. We gain a lot of experience that way. But at this point, when what you're talking about here with this is we want I want to live by decision, not default. I want to say, I want to make, I want to be not in control, but I want to be in charge of what I'm doing. And I think it's a time to think in terms of just interview yourself. What would I like to do? What is there something that I've always wanted to do, like your client, and that I'm not doing, or is there something? And very often it's people say, this is what I used to do. It's like, and it's like, well, why can't you do that? And usually it's some quick thing like, well, it's too late now. I'm too old for that. But it's like, no, let's see what we can do. And a lot of times those things are about, well, they are about purpose. They're more aligned with who we are and what we want with our lives than just a career that somebody else wanted for us, for example. So, but I think the most important piece for me is it's just wide open awareness, and in wisdom. Listen for the wisdom. We all have a wise guy inside. It's like, and if you ask questions, so I'll do that with my clients sometimes. They'll be trying to figure something out, and I'll go like, just close your eyes for a minute and just ask that question just ask it inside your mind. And what's the first thing you heard? We hear an answer. We hear a response. It's like, and it's usually pretty good, and it's but we don't know we can trust ourselves.
Yeah.
So that's what I have to say.
It's funny you say that because there's a whole approach to therapy called focusing by Eugene Gendlin. And that's the whole thesis or whole basis of his work, right? The thesis is that if you really focus within, right, really listen to yourself as you're talking about, both your body and your consciousness, right? He says if you integrate that information, there is an organismic wisdom, right, that will guide you exactly in the direction that you need to go.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. The people that a good friend of ours is John Amodeo, right? Good old John, right? He's a big proponent of focusing. And has written some great books. I mean, his recent book on authentic love is outstanding. And he
lives the life he wants to live.
Oh, doesn't he? He's going over
Thailand, 6 months Thailand. It's like he truly is somebody who does what he wants. Yeah.
And see, that's it, is when we're connected. See, people say, well, how do you know? If you don't know, then how do you know? Well, you listen to yourself.
You will know. You
will know.
Yeah. And when you said, you will get a response, it's like, it doesn't mean the first response you get is going to be the thing. It's not, sometimes we just think it's like, it's a direction. It's like, I don't know, let me go try that. It's like the more, I mean, it's a strength of mine to be able to basically say, I don't know, let's see what happens. Sort of that's experimental mindedness. And I'm very aware that everybody, it doesn't come easily to everybody. It's like, but so but I think of it as a strength of mine that I can share that with people and to teach people just to go like, sometimes you do something simply to see what happens next.
Yes.
And of course, you and I, one of the favorite things we say on the podcast is everything is information. So there's no failure in any of this stuff. Whatever you get, if I go off and do this and I come back and say, well, I know I don't ever want to do that again. It's like, then it's been a success. I have learned something.
That's right. Yeah. That's important. That's important information.
That's right.
Yeah. Yep. That's very
Yeah,
important.
yeah,
And
yeah,
true.
yeah, yeah.
And I like that experimental attitude because, see, that is one of the
Mhm.
things that we're talking about. It's okay. It's not only okay. One of the things that happens, I think, with emotional sobriety is we do loosen up so that we can experiment.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
okay to find a no. It's
Yeah.
okay to discover a no. Everybody wants to look for a yes, but no's
Well,
are
and it's, you know, we
yeah.
talk, and it's in your book as well. It's like we talk so much about recovery. You don't recover from any of this stuff, addiction or any of the stuff you want to recover from, without recovering from perfectionism. It's like, you know, it's amazing how often when I say that to clients, or when I used to do more groups and I would say it to groups, there would really be objections to that, because, you know, perfectionism has this more positive view that, you know, I'm going to do things perfectly. But, you know, what we and I know, perfectionism is just self-torture, you know, self-victimization. It's like there's no, you know, we just need to get out there and do things. And if you, and the people that I admire, the people that I learned from, the people I've modeled myself after, those are people who've take chances.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, and now that part has not always been easy for me. There have been times where it's like I can be very timid when it comes to taking a big chance to try something that, you know, is way outside the box. But it's like I like doing it, so it was worth learning how to do it. And
Yeah.
everybody's different. Everybody's different. We got to get to know ourselves.
Yeah, it's great, man. It's
Yep.
great. Well, good news on your checkup. Great
Thanks.
news.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, that's when you shared that, I was thinking of Roger, who had joined us for a long period of time and had to step out because of his thing. And
Hmm. Hmm.
let's just take a moment of silence for him because he's right now going through some very serious treatment that, if it's successful, it's gonna
Hmm.
hopefully put him in the same place you are.
Right.
It-
Just the
well,
big part of that just started today, and it's like, yeah,
that's the start of today, man.
it's big time. So I'm excited and hopeful for that too.
Me too. Me
And
too.
that man has an attitude. He's a role model for me with positive attitude. And I know none of us always have it that way, but it's like, um, we talk about serious things, but it's like I think one of the things we do, though, we play. I love playing with Roger, and and just back and forth, and I'll tell you what I'm doing, because I wouldn't tell him what it is. But it's like what I'm doing is I've got a whole bunch of greeting cards, uh, and the only requirement for the greeting card, I'm sending him cards, because I think when you're sick you need to get cards in the mail.
Right. Right.
The cards have nothing to do with anything that would be relevant. It's like one card is happy birthday grandma. You know, the other card is congratulations on your promotion. It's like I sent him one yesterday that just opened it up and it said, "Will you marry me?" It's like it's like, so so I just
Great
love
job.
doing it. I mean,
That's so
it's
great.
so much.
That's
It's so fun for me
fun,
just to
man.
find those cards. Just
That's
all
so
it's got
much
to be.
fun, man.
It's just got to be something that doesn't have a goddamn thing to do with anything, you know.
See,
Yeah.
we're just witnessing the purpose you're living your life with is
There you
it
go.
makes us all smile, man. Is to
Mhm.
give us a whole new way of looking at the world, man. And you're
Yeah,
so good at doing that. What
yeah.
a
I love it.
what a wonderful gift you're giving Roger.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I'm sure that he's enjoying it. It's a great idea, man. That has
Hmm.
nothing to do with anything.
Yeah,
But
you can't.
I like the one with
If it
Mary.
even comes close to being relevant, it's like it's
Oh, it's
gone.
so
You're
good.
out. It's like
Can't use that one. Can't throw that one out, right?
that's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I never. And by
Yeah.
the way, thank you. I never. You're right. That really fits into one of the purposes of my life, is of how I live with purpose. I, the truth is, I'm a very serious guy about getting this stuff done, doing hard, as hard work with people with therapy and stuff. But I also I'm an advocate for lightening up and having a good time. And it's like it is something I do. I do help people laugh,
You
and
certainly do. You help people laugh, and you're very good at helping us look at things in another perspective too. Like
Mhm.
last week when you brought up that it's not I'm okay if, it's also I'm okay if this didn't happen.
Yeah, yeah, and
I
bizarre,
I
yeah,
love
the
how you
psychotic
look
way is
at
to
it.
say, "I will be okay as soon as that did not happen." It's like, well, that's
Yeah,
not going to happen.
right. But
Yeah.
that's such a part of that that
Mhm.
consciousness that says
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
okay.
waiting for it to not have
What
happened.
happened? Yeah, my God, that's right. If that didn't happen, my life would be perfect right now.
I'll just wait here
Yeah.
until that's the case. Yeah, yeah.
Good luck with
Yeah.
that, right? Good luck with
Hmm.
that one. But that
Exactly.
is your purpose. And see, back to what I was saying. How do you know? You can feel when a person is living their purpose. I can feel it in
Hmm.
you that you were English, but then you found this, becoming a
Well, but
psychotherapist.
yeah, and you're also we're also doing it. You know, how much of this stuff comes from a relationship anyway? I mean, relationships are our mirrors. I mean, I've been goofing on people, my whole life. It's like you're the one pointing out to me that, oh no, that fits into the topic. It's like I didn't mean to fit into the topic. I didn't do that on purpose. It's like, and I love that feeling because I thought that does feel purposeful, and it is something that when I'm finding a card or I'm writing a card to Roger, it seems as important as anything else I'm doing in the whole day, no matter what else is going on. I love doing those things, and it's like, and so that's part of me.
Yeah.
So, and I never thought about it just that way until you said that. So, thank
Well,
you.
that's why you're such a great balance to me and to her too.
Hmm.
I mean, you
Hmm.
bring that other dimension
Hmm.
of fun and
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
and
but I mean, Herb and his slapstick comedy, it's like, is
Oh, that's good, man. That's good. Well,
I love your
well,
book, by the way. I'll just say it again. I love your book.
thanks, man. Well,
Hmm.
one of the things that people are going to get into this chapter, and I'm hoping you're reading along with us, is because, and I'm going to see if I can get my sponsor, Tom, to join us, maybe not next time, but the time
Oh,
after that
good.
story. Because I asked him if I could use his story because it's such an example of a person living a purposeful life. And he's
Hmm.
really given his life to helping those people that are suffering from addiction. And he's devoted his whole life to that. So I'm going to see if it'll be a treat for us if we can bring him in. So
It's
hopefully a
beautiful. I
couple of
love it every time he comes. Yep.
well, we have about 10 minutes left for shares. So why don't we go ahead and open it up, Julia, and ask if people if you want to share on this topic about a purpose in your life or ask Tom and I a question about that, please feel free to do so.
This really did speak to me today. It's something that's come up for me, I think, several times recently, the idea of fulfillment and joy and what are my goals in life.
Hmm.
Um, and I think it's because I'm finally ready to look at that in my recovery. It took about 5 years to just, go from survival mode. And early in my recovery, discipline became really important. You show up for your meeting, whether you like it or not, you get to go to work, you
Hmm.
get to do the next right thing, you get to not drink, you get to pick up the phone every day.
Yeah.
And I got sort of like I'm very serious about recovery, right? Like,
Hmm.
but there's that gentleness too, and that joy, Tom, that I think you
Hmm.
really embody.
Yeah, and
And
but that's a good point, Julia, because it's not the opposite of serious. It's like
no,
at all. It's like, I like to watch people's face when they know me for a while, and then I say something about how serious I am, they kind of go,
mm,
what? It's like, but it's like, no, it's not different. Yeah, I like what you said. It's more about joy than it is just, guffaw, you know. Yeah.
but it's taken time, right? That thing that you said about learning to trust myself again really, really spoke to me. It's taken, trustworthy acts over
Mhm.
an extended period of time. for me to be able to trust myself again. And also learning to be a little gentler, because I do that perfectionist, you know, I'm going to be better if I just beat the crap out of myself. And yeah, and I'm learning to be gentle. And when I'm less judgmental, I can be more flexible, and a little bit more open. And just one thing I can share about, like, I know what it feels like to get that thing. This actually happened for me while I was still drinking. But I took my first horseback riding lesson as an adult, and I fell in love. I mean, I was an academic scientist at the time, and I thought, I'm in so much trouble because this is really expensive. And I love it so much. And I've had my horse now for 10 years, and it's like, I know that feeling. So
yes.
And that's all I have to say. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Yeah, so how things are supposed to be. Oh my goodness, I'm having a real internal battle. I'm finding things extraordinarily difficult at the moment. So how things are supposed to be. You know, I was accepted to be a listening volunteer for the Samaritans and started on my training course. And it's something I never ever thought I'd be strong enough to be able to do that and give something back. However, other events have taken over that is definitely not what is supposed to be. In a nutshell, I had a horrible encounter with a thug in a car park who was trying his best to intimidate and threaten me, and he was blocking my exit from the car park. Very frightening. I reported it to the police, and then a week ago I had a phone call from a police officer saying he's now made a counter allegation against me that I assaulted him. So it's thrown my whole world into turmoil. So this thing that is just so not is supposed to be has stopped me from doing the brilliant thing. So I've had to put my Samaritans training on hold while I deal with the fallout of just sitting in terror of what's going to happen next. I mean, how do you juggle that one in your head and still be accepting of this is what is supposed to be?
Well, don't even in the confusion and the mix up, and the fear and don't forget you're doing this because you were standing up for yourself. You were taking care of yourself. It's I mean the world does not respond to us in the ways that we want, and it's like I'm sorry for those. The idea that you're doing something that's right and you have consequences for it. That sucks. It's like, but I mean, that's a beautiful example of what Alan is talking about and what we talk about in here when we say things that, we need to learn we need to be okay. And it doesn't mean we need to be happy about it. We need to be okay. We need to be able to accept what's happening. And that sounds like that's what you're doing. You're just taking the next step. And so you got to, okay, now I've got to go, this is a pain in the ass and I've got to go address this deal, because,
Well, not quite like that, because
Oh, not yet. You want to get there though, Claire, don't you?
yesterday I locked myself in my bathroom crying on the floor in the fetal position.
Well, of course. See, what happens, Claire, sometimes is what I'm picking up from what you're saying is that it's so easy, and Thom kind of alluded to that, to have the expectation that when you do something right, people should recognize it, and we shouldn't get a lot of flack over it, or somebody shouldn't come back and try to turn it around and blame us for it, and that kind of stuff. And so then it's very easy to get lost in it being unfair. See, that's the thing, is as soon as I want the world to be fair, and when it's not, then what happens? And all I can do is object and get bummed out about it and feel like here it goes again. It's never going to work out. I've learned that I like to replace the word with unfair with unfortunate. So I take fairness out of the game. I remove it and say it's an unfortunate situation that this guy won't take any responsibility for himself. Not too surprising, not unfortunately, the level of consciousness and maturity in our cultures is not very high. So the fact people don't want to take responsibility, try to turn it around, project it onto us, all that other stuff, it's going to happen. It's not, like Thom said, not a good thing, but it is something that happens. Now my issue is how to deal with this without getting lost. And I have to stay centered. I know what my truth was here. He can play whatever games he wants, but I know what happened and I know how I dealt with it and I know what's going on here. And I'm not going to let him define and change what my truth is. And see, that's what emotional sobriety is to keep yourself, a hold of yourself when you're getting pressured outside of yourself to lose yourself and give yourself up. That's the hard.
It's about integrity. That's right, Alan. It's like that's
coming back. That's right.
It's not about happy. It's about integrity, self-respect. Yeah.
Coming back to that center, this is my truth. I know what I did in this situation, and he can play whatever games he wants. I know what's going on. And then when you get that clarity, you don't have to be reactive to him. You once again, you don't take it personal. You say, my God, this is saying a lot about him and nothing about me. I know what happened.
I understand all that. The problem is the police now want me to go to the station to give an interview under caution, and I'm in absolute terror. Well, I'm in absolute terror that I may end up convicted of something that not only I didn't
you may be, but see, then this is where, though, when you go from that position, you're already not supporting yourself. See, I would welcome the chance to go and tell my story. See, that's the difference. Yeah, I'll go tell my story. If I get interviewed, I know what the truth was in here. I know what happened is I have nothing to be afraid of. See, that's where you got to go from, is what you know to be your truth. You're looking at this in a whole other way in terms of fantasizing this is going to happen. But this is where our staying grounded and keeping our center of gravity over our 2 feet becomes so important. Not letting somebody else try to gaslight you and play a game with you. Now, this may trigger some trauma in you that you're feeling right now, and it has nothing to do with this. You're bringing the past into the present. And what I would encourage you to do is get busy with differentiating the past from now. When somebody played a game on like that when you were a kid, you didn't have the ability to take care of yourself. You're not a kid anymore. You're an adult, and you need to look at all the ways that this situation is similar, but more importantly, how it's different, so you can get your grounding again, because that's what's happening. You're getting your traumas getting triggered, Claire.
Yeah, and you've made me realize there as well, fundamentally, it's lack of trust that authority is going to do the right thing.
Well, that's your trauma, right? Did authority do the right thing? Did people that were in charge of you and were there to protect you do the right thing? So see, you're bringing all that to the police station. They're not your mother and father. They're police officers trying to figure something out. That's all. You gotta differentiate all that stuff from now. Okay.
And you're doing the right thing. See, that's the thing. That's where your self-respect is. Yeah.
That's it. Yep. That's it.